Hello everyone. In today's session of the Postman API testing series, we will delve into variables. We'll explore what variables are, how to create and use them, the concept of environment variables, the significance of global variables, and understand the scope of variables. We'll discuss all these aspects in detail and also demonstrate practical implementations. If you haven't watched the previous videos in this playlist, I recommend doing so before continuing with session 5. Your support is crucial, so if you find the video helpful, please subscribe to the channel. Be sure to watch the video till the end for a comprehensive understanding. Let's kick off today's session. What are variables in Postman? We use variables in Postman to store different values. For example, just as we use variables in programming to store various values, we apply the same concept in Postman. Let's understand this with an example. Consider two URLs, URL1 and URL2. If we examine URL1 closely, we can identify the protocol and, up to a certain point, the domain. By comparing both URLs, we notice that the domain is the same, while the endpoints differ. Recognizing this, we decide to store the common domain as a variable. Subsequently, we can use this variable to send requests. This variable allows us to efficiently manage and update the domain in one place, simplifying the process of making changes across multiple requests. I will open Postman now and create a collection. We can create a collection using the plus icon or by clicking on File, then New, and selecting Collection. I will use the plus icon and name the collection Session 5. Within the collection, I'll create a request and name it GetRequest. For the HTTP request type, I'll choose Get and provide the URL. I'll copy the URL from Notepad where I have stored this information. I've discussed the process of obtaining these URLs in previous videos, so I won't go through that again. Now, I'll send the request by clicking the Send button. Let's observe the response, including the status code, response body, time, and size. Let's skip the response part since we've already discussed that. Our main focus now is to store this URL as a variable. To do that, we need to click on the Session 5 collection, then navigate to the Variables section. We will name the variable URL. What should be our initial value? We need to set the initial value to what we want to store in the variable. The current value will also be the same. After that, we'll save this. Now, we can use the URL variable. I will return to the request we created. In the URL's domain part, we will replace it with the URL variable. How can we do that? Let's see now. We can use double curly braces and place the variable name inside. It's the same as shown on the screen. If you hover the mouse here, you can see the variable. Now, let's send our request. Everything is fine, and we've received the response. This is how we can create a variable. For better understanding, let's create one more request and examine the response. Click on the three dots, create a request, name it Request2, and provide the URL from Notepad. Send the request, and now we have a response. Now, let's do the same as we did for the GetRequest. We will use a variable instead of the domain. Let's send this and check the response. Yes, it is working as expected. So, now we understand the purpose of a variable. If not understood, let me explain. For example, if there is any change in the domain, we would have to go to each and every request and manually make the change. However, now, using a variable, we can change the domain name in one place, and it applies to all the requests. Because of this feature, we can work very efficiently, resulting in good work quality. Now, let's explore another option to create a variable using the environment. Let's see what an environment is. When a developer develops an application, it initially resides in the development environment. Once development is complete, the application is moved to the testing environment for testing. Here, the development environment is different from the QA environment. After QA is completed, the product is then moved to the production environment. To manage all these environments, we have an option. In that environment, we can also create variables. Let's see how to do that. Currently, in the environment section, it's empty and showing no environment. Click here to add a new environment and give it a name. I'll name it QA environment. Create a variable named QA URL and copy the value from Notepad. Now, we are done. Just save this using the Save option. In the existing GET request, instead of the variable URL, we will use QA URL. I will change QA URL instead of URL. Now, let's send that request. Okay, now the request is not sent. Why? Oh, okay, we have to select the environment here. I will select the QA environment and send the request. Now, we can see the request sent successfully, and we got the response as well. For the second GET request, let's check that too. We will modify the URL as per the QA environment and select the QA environment before sending the request. So now, we understand how we can create a variable in two ways. Now, let's learn about global variables and their use. First, we will create one more environment. To create an environment, we can click on File, then New, and select Environment. We will give the environment name as Development, and that's it. Now, if we use the same variable that we used in QA, will it work? Let's see. I will go to the request and change the environment to Development. Oh no, we are getting an issue here, an unresolved variable, because it is not getting any variable from the development environment. Now, if we send the request, we will get an error below, stating could not send request. Now we understand that one environment variable is not used in another environment. For that, what is the solution? That's why we use global variables. With global variables, we can use them in any environment. Now, let's see how to create a global environment. To do that, we will go to the environment, and there is an option called Globals. I will click Add there. Here, I will create a variable just like we did earlier, and I named it Global URL. After that, I will save it. Now, I will go back to my request. I have selected the environment as Development, and I will change the variable name to Global URL. Let's see if it will work or not. When we kept the variable from QA in the development environment, it was not working. Now, we have given Global URL, and we will send it. Okay, now we got the response. Now, let's check if the global URL will work in the QA environment or not. For that, I will select Request To. Here, I will keep the environment as QA, and I will modify the URL. I made this URL a global URL. If we mouse hover on the global URL, it will give information here. Let's send this and check the response. Yes, it is working. As of now, firstly, we created a variable at the collection level. Secondly, we created one at the environment level. Thirdly, we created one at the global level. Now, we understand the scope of all these three. If we create a variable at the collection level, we can use it only inside that collection. Let's check that. Before, we created a collection level variable named URL. Now, let's go to my collection 1 GET request. Here, our domain name is the same. Now, let's modify this URL and check if it will work or not. Now, send the request. See, it is not working, we got a could not send request error, and in the URL, it is showing an unresolved issue. If we use the QA environment variable, it will work here because it is at the environment level. Now, I will use the QA environment variable here and send the request. Yes, it is working. Furthermore, a global variable is accessible anywhere. So, now we have learned what a variable is, what a global variable is, and what an environment is. We also learned how to create and use all of these. It's time to wind up this session. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Like the video, comment, and share. Thank you. Bye.